even if I can't answer them today, eventually we'll be able to connect, and I will hopefully connect with you one-on-one, or at least over DMs, and I can help answer some of these questions. So I encourage you to have notes, sit back, enjoy, but let's get to it. So my name is Zoe, and this presentation is really structured on becoming the kind of human that the world needs right now, especially right now. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of my origin story as a first-gen non-traditional pre-med. And then I also want to bring in a couple of characters to this story, one of them being my inspirations, being Dr. Edmund Pellegrino. You can see one of his quotes here: "Medicine is a moral enterprise." He was a professor and ethicist at Catholic University, and then he moved over to Georgetown University. Georgetown University is really known for their bioethics, and he did a lot of work on the Presidential Bioethics Commission during the President Bush administration. And so something cool within the United States is we do commission these committees called bioethics committees, and each president has the opportunity to do that. It started during President Carter back in the 1970s. And what they can do is they can have experts in the field, like doctors, like lawyers, like PhDs, like chaplains, come in and talk about some of the issues that are really pressing. So some of the issues right now that are really pressing are, what do we do with embryos that we've created? What do we do when it comes to someone that might not be able to have informed consent and they're on a ventilator? What are some of the emerging technologies like gene therapies? So that's kind of some of the stuff that has been done and continues to be done today. So I am currently applying M.D. PhD, which is a very interdisciplinary path. I did want to ask, does anyone know what an M.D. PhD is? Is everyone familiar with that path? Look in the chat.
I just unmuted the chat, so I just wanted to, yes.
Awesome. Okay. I see some saying yes, no. So I'll give a brief description. This is not a full overview of it, but an MD PhD is essentially doing a double doctor. So you can be a medical doctor in the first 2 years of your training. You'll go through the normal med school route. And then from there, you usually go into a PhD training. A lot of times we think of physician scientists, which are MD, PhD students, as people that are studying like neuroscience or cell biology or something very basic science. And so my path, though, towards an MD, PhD is really focused on the medical doctor paired with a non-basic science. So more like the humanities, philosophy, trying to kind of think in a more abstract way. So I want everyone to know that that is also a path. It's not as traditional in the sense. When you are going into an MD, PhD, you'll see a lot of these physician scientists in training doing very high level wet lab work. And when I say wet lab work, they're using pipettes, and they're using PCR methods, and they're putting things under the microscope. So just keeping that in mind. So I also currently work on NIH Recover, which is a long COVID study. And so this is something that is funded by the National Institutes of Health, which is a federally funded study by the US government. And the National Institutes of Health, also known as NIH, does a lot of work when it comes to all aspects of health and studies. And then I'm also a bioethics student at Harvard Medical School. So I'm pursuing my MBE, which is a Master's of Science in Bioethics. And that is something that has been very fulfilling for me and is honestly one of the best parts about my journey so far. And I will talk a little bit more about the field of bioethics and what that really means. And then in addition, I am an amateur content creator. So I run an account called Grad School Tips, and I try to do a lot with how to fund grad school and different ways to strengthen your applications, and honestly, just talking about my path in general. So definitely feel free to follow along. I'll put my social media stuff at the end so we can connect. So that is the first slide. I also should warn everyone, this is only my second time doing a presentation this large. So bear with me as I'm still kind of learning. But let's talk a little bit about who I am and kind of how I got here. So in early childhood, I grew up riding horses and I was always kind of surrounded by animals. You can see here, circa 2004, I am walking my dog, my cat. Not really sure why my parents wanted me to walk my cat, but it happens. Um, but I really think that started some of my reasoning for wanting to pursue ethics. I think a lot of being an animal owner and growing up around animals, you develop a sense of empathy. You also develop a reason to want to care for others that don't have a voice. And that was something that I found really cool. These animals are trusting us and expecting us to care for them and be there for them, feed them. And they can't really speak to tell us what they need and want. So then as a teen, I started working on an anti-tobacco campaign, and I helped pass some of the legislation in Virginia. And so that was really cool for me because I got to see advocacy from a whole new lens. And then from there, I went into the University of Virginia, which is where I studied cognitive neuroscience. And I really liked that, but I'm going to be real with you guys. That wasn't my number one thing to do. I really wanted to study public health. I actually wanted to do global public health. But the crazy thing about my university at that time, you had to apply into your major. So you already went to school, you got into school, I got in there. And then after 2 years, they were like, okay, what do you want your major to be? And I said, oh, I want to do global public health. And then they said, oh yeah, so you got to apply into that, and it's really competitive and you actually have to be accepted. So I got denied, so I couldn't study public health, and I was really upset because I was like that, but that's what I want to do. So I kind of figured out a new path. What was I going to do? So I found the cognitive neuroscience major. I didn't have to apply into that one, so I could just do it. And then I also found bioethics. So I started minoring in bioethics and I fell in love with the field. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and kind of what that looked like. So then after graduation, I started working at a company called Rescue Agency, and they did a lot of tobacco and anti-obesity efforts. And so, or anti-tobacco and obesity prevention efforts. And I really enjoyed getting to see the public health side of things, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And I should also keep in mind, while I was at the University of Virginia, I thought I wanted to do a little bit of pre-med stuff, and the pre-med culture scared me. Like, it was not the vibe. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but some of the pre-med students can be really competitive. So I wanted to figure out what could I do within public health, but then also get a little bit more clinical. And that's when I really recognized that, okay, if I want to get more clinical, I'm going to need to go do some prereqs, and I'm going to need to finish my med school prereqs because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to apply to medical school. So then simultaneously, I also started working at Georgetown. So I quit my job at Rescue Agency and I started working over in the global health and infectious disease programs at Georgetown. And I learned a lot about grad school. I learned about the admissions cycle. I sat on admissions teams. I was blown away with how little I knew about the inner workings of a major university. And it ended up being one of the coolest things. And that's what I really started sharing on my page, what I learned from those interactions, what I learned from students coming in and asking me questions that weren't quite clear cut. Um, Sometimes as we're working in these fields, and I want to really highlight this right now for everyone, we become so used to kind of these the questions that are asked, like, oh, like, no one needs to ask that question, like that's what we do, that's normal. And keep that in mind when you're in medicine. I was actually just talking to a group the other day, and we were talking about how in medicine sometimes, like, if you're working in the ICU, it's so normal to see death, right? Like, people working in the ICU are seeing death every day, but that's not a normal human condition to see. Like, I can promise you, I've only seen two people die in front of me because I was volunteering hospice at one point. And that was expected. They trained us, they worked with us, but most people in their lifetimes, like, maybe they see very close family members die, but they don't see humans just passing away as as part of their daily life. And so when we normalize some of these things, it does also create a distress for the individual, but then it's difficult for them to keep in mind um, that this is impacting someone's life profoundly. And by someone, I'm thinking their family members and the people that are around them. So the way that we show up and we treat them, it's not just this rote rehearsal phenomena that we're going through. We have to really keep in mind that this is someone's entirety, right? So I noticed this when I was in grad school admissions. I was getting these questions from students that I was like, when I first started, I was like, these are such great questions that no one is talking about, because everyone else that was working in the grad school had been working there for a decade. So they were just so used to it. But you keep in mind, someone going to medical school or grad school, that's a huge part of their life. And that's a big commitment to make. So I started talking about different ways to fund. One way in that I wanted to plug for you guys, it's known as the Tuition Assistance Program. And I actually use it at my current job, where they help reimburse some of my current studies. So each year, my study and the organization that I work with, which is technically through NYU Langone Health, they pay $13,000 a year for my studies, which is great. And it helps offset a lot of the cost. It's still very expensive at the end of the day, so I have to find other ways to also fund it. But keep that in mind for your future studies. It's not as useful when it comes to programs like medical school or law school, because those programs you usually do have to be enrolled full time. But I actually only work part time, or I work full time and I study part time. So I'm able to kind of balance the two. And by doing the full time work, they offer the reimbursements, and it's kind of like a benefit, like health insurance or dental insurance in the comparing it to the US. And so it's just an added bonus. And I still get my normal salary and everything like that. So, talking about today, I am working on NIH Recover, which is the long COVID study. I am a student at Harvard Medical School, so you can see me in front of the quintessential Harvard wall that I feel like everyone takes a photo at when they're here. And I'm also a baby researcher, so I have quite a few different research projects. And we'll talk a little bit about how I got into research and how you guys can also get your foot in the door. And then again, an amateur content creator, and I post a lot on TikTok and Instagram. but let's talk a little bit more about who I actually am. So I am I'm fun. I'm a silly, goofy person. I grew up in Virginia and then I moved to DC and then now I'm in Boston. I'm a runner. I'm applying MD PhD, which is a little scary. I'm not going to lie, but it's going to be fine if you guys want to follow along for that journey too. Um, I have gotten to share my research in quite a few different settings. I recently got to go to the Middle East and present my research with some really cool philosophers and bioethicists and lawyers from around the world. My research is very robust. So I do a lot in the aging field right now, but then I'm also very interested in reproductive ethics. I'm getting ready to do a piece on medfluencers and kind of just everything in between. So there is really no stone left unturned in the field of bioethics, and you can really hone in on different interests and different questions. And so, whenever, for me, anytime I notice something in my life that feels a little icky, that's when I start asking these questions and start trying to figure out how can I make this research happen? Y'all, I promise I'm going to get better at this. Okay, so what is bioethics? Um, so bioethics covers kind of the ethical questions arising, I say, from life, because I think everything stems from life. So within the field, though, we do have some focuses on medicine and healthcare, and that's kind of where my interest is. So it's a field of study and professional practice that tackles these moral implications. Again, anytime I feel a little bit icky about something happening in medicine and science related to it, that's when I'm like, okay, we gotta talk bioethics now. And so it really is a interdisciplinary relationship because we have communications on one side, we have clinical trials in human subjects, but then we go into animal studies, and then we go into what is this new drug doing and how can we make sure that we are sharing it in an ethically permissible way. And so being ethically permissible is just ethically acceptable way. And then we see it how affecting public health professionals in general, the dynamics between distribution and consumer relations in drug therapies and technologies, including genetic technologies, and then literally everything in between. So we are going to actually go through some of the examples. I'm going to actually take you guys to this. So before I start this scene, the background is this is from a movie called 50-50. I broke it into two pieces because there's a cuss word in between, and I wanted to be morally appropriate for one of my first presentations. But the basis of this movie, the guy right here on the left, he is best friends with this guy. This guy recently got diagnosed with cancer, and he's trying to ask his friend, so what's going to happen? So we'll go ahead and watch this.
It's not a picture of anything. Well, you're going to be okay. I think.
What are your odds?
I don't know. I mean, I looked it up and it said 50-50, but that's like the internet. So
It's not that bad. It's better than I thought. You're gonna be fine, man. You're young. Young people beat cancer all the time.
So then we'll go to the next scene.
Fine. Yeah. Fine. 50-50. If you were a casino game, you'd have the best odds.
yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
So thinking about that, I think it's just a cool way to introduce the idea of decision making, and kind of what is the true value of bringing these numbers to the table, right? Is this information, having more information, inherently better? And who should be making these decisions, right? And so I wanted to bring up the ethics of prenatal genetic testing. This is actually a professor in my program. She's really cool, but she shared her story recently about how when she was at the age of 40, which is considered to be on the older age of the spectrum for becoming pregnant, she decided to do a routine screening test, which revealed a 1 in 40 chance that her child would be born with Down syndrome. So when we are thinking about this, though, a 1 in 40 chance, kind of like the previous scene, if this was a lottery game, if we were in Vegas, that would be great, right? And it sounds promising. But if you're getting ready to get on a United flight and there's a 1 in 40 chance that the plane might crash, that's pretty scary. That's high risk, right? And so whenever we're thinking about these decisions, when we're thinking about how do we navigate this, each of these cases is so contextual and so personal to each person. And in medicine, every day, I remember when I first started coming into bioethics, I thought it would be best to be objective. I kind of wanted to be a robot at times. But in reality, that's not human nature. That's not the human condition. We as humans have to bring in our human components. We have to bring in our emotions. That's what makes us into empathetic individuals. That's what makes us feel like we can connect with others. I actually just asked someone the other day, I started a book club because of my TikTok. I was kind of bored this summer. Well, not bored because I'm studying a lot, but I wanted to do something outside of studying. And I still wanted to talk more about bioethics because I don't have class during the summer. So I started a book club, and our first book was quite sad, actually. It's When Breath Becomes Air. I highly recommend it, though. He talks a lot about the human condition and the type of person that he as a surgeon would show up as, and then how he as a patient showed up as. And I asked one of the girls at book club, hey, like, would you rather have someone that is super type A, super robotic working on you, like specifically working on your brain? Because for me, I was like, I might be able to deal with a robot if they're really good. But she said the most beautiful response, I would be so scared. Think about having a robot come and talk to you before having brain surgery. How scary that would be. And how personal your case is. Like, no one is going to have the exact same background as you, right? No one's going to know what has made you into that creature you are today, and kind of what scares you. For me, if someone yells at me, I'm so scared and I'm going to start crying right away, which I do need to start getting over because I know in medicine it's probably going to be in my future. But like, come on, that is part of me. And so that's something that I would upfront tell the surgeon, hey, make sure that we keep a calm voice at all times. Make sure that I'm scared. Like, I would honestly say that to them, like, hey, I've never done this before. I know you've done this 10,000 times. And that comes back to understanding that this is a once in a lifetime thing happening to us. Ideally, none of us are going to have brain surgery, but if we do, hopefully we only have it once. And hopefully it ends up being a good experience. Well, good as in as much as it can be. But we have people around us that are showing us empathy and really bringing about these aspects of life that are really important. So I'm going to go back, and I wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm doing in bioethics and what it means for me. So I do a lot in a field called clinical ethics. And so clinical ethics is actually the study of bioethics, but in a clinical realm. So I am pursuing medicine, and I would like to be a physician ethicist as well as a researcher. So that's kind of where that MD PhD route comes in. But my non-traditional route brought me through the advocacy realm. I kind of learned what it means to do the public health stuff. I was able to see the cognitive science side of things. So cognitive science is very psychology based and understanding how social interactions shape us. And then I really got to discover ethics, and that's kind of where I'm at. And what I'm hoping will be the leading force in a lot of my journey. And then now applying medical school and doing a lot of research. But I don't think that I fit that pre-med mold like a lot of people might resonate with. I, for a long time, did not see myself becoming a physician, did not see myself doing an MD, PhD. That was not in my initial plan. And I think a lot of life comes about by just having experiences and then being like, wait a second, I think I could vibe with that. I think this might be a route for me. And kind of keeping it in your mind and then allowing yourself to explore these opportunities and these options. So going back to why did I choose bioethics? I really love moral storytelling in medicine. I think it's so cool because I think there are so many narratives in medicine that really impact how we are as patients, how we are as providers, how we are as humans. And I think the coolest part about bioethics, though, is that there's really no clear answer. It brings out humanism in this very sterile field. And I want all of us to consider that, right? Like, we are merely humans trying to navigate how to save people's lives, how to ensure people survive, that they enjoy life, not just survive, but actually can enjoy their life moving forward. And so I think I see a lot of that in bioethics, and that's what kind of gets me excited. Okay, so let's move forward. So we talked a little bit about this decision making. And so this is kind of where my interest in bioethics is in this clinical side. So we know what bioethics is, but what is clinical ethics? So this is a little bit of a subset of the field, but I would still say it's at the forefront. At many institutions where they are providing medical care, so many hospitals, they're going to have clinical ethics professionals on staff. So these are people that are trained in offering ethical guidance and recommendations to the requesting party. And the cool part is they are a neutral player. So that requesting party can be physicians that are employed by the hospital. They can be patients. They can be nursing staff. They can be patients' family members. Anyone that is feeling moral distress within the hospital setting, the clinical ethics team can come and help. I do want to note that the goal of a clinical ethicist is to offer recommendations and guidance, not necessarily play God. And I think if any of y'all have ever heard of bioethics before this meeting, you might have sometimes heard it in the same connotation as playing God. One of my goals is to really refute that idea. I think clinical ethicists really do have a cool role, and it kind of reminds me at times like a therapist or going to therapy or being in social work. You're working with other humans to try to form the best plan going forward to try to reduce moral distress. And in all honesty, that seems like something that we should be doing in every aspect of our life. If I could consult an ethicist for every decision that I'm about to make, would love that. but unfortunately we don't have the time or the resources for that. And then ideally at this point, I'm learning how to be an ethicist. So all of my decisions should be ethically informed, or ought to be. I'm not sure if I've gotten there yet. I'm still working on it. But so let's talk about, how does bioethics fit into medicine and public health? So I think so far, hopefully you've been able to see a theme of this overlap within medicine, morality, and human flourishing. And I think that's where a lot of times we see some of the philosophical tie-ins come in. So I'm a very big Aristotle girly. If anyone's read any Aristotle, I love the idea of virtue ethics, where we keep striving to be a better person. I know for me, something that I work really hard on is my communication, how I deliver my communication. So I really want everyone around me to feel comfortable, to just chat with me, to enjoy my company. I want to enjoy their company. And I think that's something that I continue to try to become better at each and every day. And it's something that I practice that skill. Will I ever be perfect? I don't know. Maybe. Is perfect real? I think I'll just keep wanting to go to the next level. And I think that's also something that I hope to do in my next transition as a medical student, and hopefully as a future physician, where I keep trying to reach this virtuous physician, this virtuous person potential. And that's something that directly comes out of some of Aristotle's beliefs. So, in the other direction. Now, let's get really interactive. I wanted to bring you guys into a clinical ethics case study. So please utilize the chat, but then I'm also going to call on people. So anyone that's interested in speaking on this case, please raise your hand. But let's go through it first. I'll ask some questions after we chat about it. So Miss Smith is an 88-year-old woman who was admitted to the hospital with severe pneumonia. She has advanced Alzheimer's dementia, rendering her unable to communicate or make decisions for herself. Her medical team successfully treats the pneumonia, but during her hospitalization, she develops severe swallowing difficulties. And this is high risk for aspiration pneumonia. The doctors recommend inserting a tube, a peg, which is essentially going to feed her and give her nutrition and hydration to sustain her life. Miss Smith's daughter, who holds her medical power of attorney, is adamantly against the feeding tube. She explicitly states, "My mother always told me she never wanted to live connected to machines or to prolong her life when she couldn't live with dignity. She'd hate this. She wishes to provide comfort care only and allow natural progression." However, Miss Smith's son completely disagrees with this. He believes that his mother should be kept alive at all costs, arguing that she is still alive, she is still my mom, we have to do everything we can for her. The medical team is caught between two conflicting family wishes, their own sense of what constitutes best interest for a patient who cannot speak for herself. So they consult an ethics team. So you guys are now the ethics committee, and I want you to think about how you would approach this case. So if anyone is interested, okay, I'm going to go ahead and unmute Salma.
Okay, I think, in my opinion, we just see the doctor feelings and do what is the best for the patient. I feel it's more comfortable and something that I would be comfortable with. That's what I feel.
Yeah, no, I really like that. So in this instance, we're offering up the idea of do no harm, offer the patient's benefit. We really are going to use a substituted judgment in the sense that we are going to be her decision maker, and we are going to help her kind of navigate this issue when she isn't able to do so herself. So I do really like that one. Does anyone else? Let's go, Maisha. I might be saying your name wrong, so please correct me. I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
No, saying my name perfectly right. That's Maisha. But on the first read, I thought that we should probably side with Mrs. Smith's daughter, who is her attorney of medical. But I think that, when I thought more of it, I think we should go for a more collaborative approach. We could have an ethicist, Mrs. Smith's daughter and her son, be in a meeting together and perhaps discuss it out then. And then with the medical professional, we could have even more of a discussion to decide which side we should be more towards.
Yeah, okay. I really like that as well. I think sometimes having these meetings offers a lot of insight into why someone is adamantly agreeing about something or disagreeing. Maybe Miss Smith's son, Mark, is really going through a tough time right now, and the last thing that he wants is to lose his mom. So maybe he's not even thinking about his mom's interest at this point. He's really just thinking about, I can't lose my one mother. And I think that's when we bring into this, in this context, in that deeply personal aspect that we looked at with the prenatal testing case. When you are in this situation, that's your one mom, right? It's your one dad. It's your one grandparent, your sister. Like, these are instances and individuals in your life that have deeply shaped who you are. You have such a personal connection. Of course, you don't want to lose them. It's a lot easier for a physician to make some of these decisions, per se, because they are farther removed. You can be a lot more objective, but I want us to continue to think through that, again, we are still all humans. And sometimes that objectiveness in these decision-making ideas and capacities, it's tough. Okay, I'm gonna go, we have a lot of hands up. How about Alana? It might be, if I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me.
Does the patient have a healthcare proxy?
Great question. So in this instance, we're using the healthcare proxy interchangeably with medical power of attorney. They are a bit different in the sense that both are legally binding, but I wanted to kind of throw a little caveat out there for everyone. When it comes to medical powers of attorney and advanced directives and healthcare proxies, they can be thrown out the door in certain instances. So if a physician or team at the hospital feels that you are maliciously making decisions against someone and not using like their best judgment, substituted judgment, they can just say, absolutely not, we're not following that. And then the advanced directives as well. Let's say Ms. Smith had explicitly written in her advanced directive, hey, I actually don't want XYZ done. It can be overridden. We feel that the advanced directive is not like in alignment at that time, because you also have to keep in mind sometimes these decisions are made decades ago. I'll also say a slight funny story, and then Alana, I promise I'm going to get back to you because I want to hear more about what you have to say. I have seen cases where someone has their medical power of attorney or healthcare proxy being their divorced spouse from like a decade ago, and they just never updated that paperwork. So we're in the hospital and we're like, hey, Mr. Smith. And Mr. Smith goes, oh my gosh, I can't stand that woman. I divorced her a decade ago. I don't want anything to do with it. So sometimes people just do not update their paperwork. Okay, Alana, let's go back. what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I guess if there isn't a proxy, as bioethics, we should like reach them to a certain consciousness that will help them like align with what their mother like wants.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I think in this instance, I think Sarah is kind of that person, and she wants to follow what her mom wanted. And so maybe we can really bring that up to Mark, and potentially this committee meeting is what I would suggest. And we tell Mark, like, what do you think, like, what would your mom have said? Like, what would she have wanted in these instances? And hopefully he's truthful and willing to share that, like, hey, I think my mom would have actually wanted this, but I really want this. So how can we kind of come to a middle ground? Um, and I do think that we should also consider the impact that a peg tube would have on Mrs. Smith, right? This is not like a simple procedure. Uh, this is something that is going to be invading her autonomy. And so there are 4 components within clinical ethics that we really think about. We think about respect for autonomy. We think about justice. We think about beneficence, which is kind of like doing good for the individual and the teams involved. And then we also think about non-maleficence, which is the do no harm. You think about physicians, their goal is to help patients and not to harm them, right? So also thinking about how could this impact a physician's duty or a healthcare team's duty? Is installing a peg tube and prolonging life what is expected of them? Or is quality of life and fulfilling her wishes what is expected? Let's go with one more. I'm going to go with Sarah.
Well, I personally think as doctors, we actually don't have a saying in this. Shouldn't we just let the family settle on their own decision, and then we just follow what they want?
Yeah, and I do think that that is a guide for us and something that we should try to uphold, because I do think that in going back to the context and this being a deeply personal part of the journey, in thinking that each individual has ideally some expectation for how they would want to be cared for, right? Especially at the end of life, even if we haven't explicitly stated it. Even think about things like that you've said or done. I know I talk about this a lot because I'm in this field, but I have explicitly told my friends, like, hey, if I am ever in a really bad accident and I'm lacking decision-making capacity, that is the clinical term when someone comes in and they cannot communicate with us. We say they lack decision-making capacity. So who's going to be their substituted judgment? And in this case, I think for me, it seems a little bit more clear that we need to have a committee meeting. I would lean more with the side of Sarah, but I think we also don't want to go against Mark, because also think of the psychological impact and the long-term trauma that this would leave on Mark if we literally just told him, no, we are just going to let your mom die now. That would really be upsetting and distressing for anyone to hear. So I think the goal moving forward is we do try to fulfill the family's wishes, but we need to make sure that we get them kind of on the same team, right? And make sure that they both are aware that this is the plan, this is what has been chosen. We can't go back and forth, because the worst would be, let's say, one week down the line, she hasn't eaten or had hydration in a week. She's going to be pretty frail. We most likely are going to have her on morphine at that point. She's entered palliative care or hospice. And the issue would be if, let's say, Mark came in and was like, no, we have to put the peg tube in now. Then we would definitely be causing more harm than good at that point, because the going back and forth is unacceptable. So these were really great comments and discussions. And I really encourage you, if anyone, like, this is something that clinical ethicists do on the daily. So if you have any interest in this in the future, definitely consider taking bioethics classes, looking into clinical ethics as a future career. Because even with not having necessarily a black or white answer, you can see all of us kind of came in. We brought different perspectives. We brought different judgments to the table. Or not, I don't want to say judgments, but I want to say we brought different recommendations and thoughts on this. And some of them stem from our personal connection with it, or just what really feels innately part of us, right? So in moving forward, because I do want to be cautious of time, I wanted to share one of my favorite quotes. This is from I would say, one of the most virtuous physicians in modern medicine. He unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a leader in global health and public health, and his name was Dr. Paul Farmer. He was an M.D. PhD. He studied here at Harvard. I actually got to meet one of his mentors the other day. He performed his final lecture. And when he talked about Paul Farmer, you could see how proud he was and how inspired he was by the work that his student did. And I want to see that for each and every one of you. I know you guys are not my students, but you are my colleagues, my fellow humans. And I want you guys to be inspired to make the world a better place. And so I want to offer you this quote by Dr. Paul Farmer. For me, an area of moral clarity is you're in front of someone who's suffering, and you have the tools at your disposal to alleviate that suffering or even eradicate it, and you act. And so I think about that in the public health context, in the bioethics context, in the medical context, and not necessarily pumping someone with medicine or drugs, but offering them a hand when they're maybe at a low point, offering them a way to alleviate moral distress, offering them care when they need care, offering them a vaccine, they need a vaccine, and you have access to it. We as humans sometimes forget that we have so much power in our actions and how we want to move forward in our lives. And so kind of going back to that idea of virtue ethics and being a virtuous person or virtuous physician, I really challenge you to try to incorporate that into your everyday life. If you, like I was talking about with my communication, if you recognize that, okay, I could have probably communicated that a little bit softer when I was telling my mom I didn't like the way that she told me I couldn't go see my friends this weekend. Okay, mom, I see why we have a very packed weekend. You probably don't want to drive to Nancy's house. But you know what? Maybe we put on the schedule for the following weekend. I could go to Nancy's house. Maybe we could make a agreement where you drive one way, Nancy's mom drives the other way. And then that way we come up with a better plan, and it kind of alleviates some of the burden on you. And so even thinking about that, instead of initially getting upset, because I know, guys, I know I would get upset too. But I think recognizing we are all humans just trying to live, survive. But most importantly, we should all be aiming to flourish with one another and for one another. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of advice when it comes to kind of trying to navigate this journey. So advice for fellow humans and colleagues, embrace your stories. Let those experiences help navigate you and shape who you want to be, and where you want to be, right? You will be so surprised at the opportunities that come when you just talk about things that are happening in your life, when you are open to some of the detours. I don't want to say that I'm a super type A person, but I'm definitely more type A than I am type B. So I like to make plans and I like to use strategy. But I also recognized once I opened up to detours on this journey, I learned so much more and it was so much more exciting. The first time I applied to Harvard, they rejected me, a big fat rejection. And if you go deep enough down onto my TikTok, you can see the rejection letter. It's pretty great. But I recognized, okay, I didn't have the strongest application. I needed to figure out how I would strengthen it. I ended up doing a lot more clinical work because I needed that clinical experience to really understand, is this what I want to do? I think what they saw in my application was, this girl is a little bit of a mess. She's not really sure where she wants to go. So she needs to be a little bit more strategic in her planning. And so that's what I did. But as I was planning and as I was following this path to strengthen my application, I also found different lectures to go to. I found different interests. I found a love for global health. I found a love for infectious disease. I'm very interested in aspects of One Health, which is the human, animal, and environment connection, which makes sense why I was walking my cat at like age 4. So some of these detours have opened up different opportunities for me. I went to a party one time and I ended up meeting an owner of a big pre-med company. And next summer, I get to spend the entire summer in Greece working on clinical rotations with pre-med students. Like, how cool is that? All because I went to a party. So thinking about some of these things that happen just because a little bit of chance and a little bit of just being open-minded and open to kind of what's going to come my way. So soaking in those experiences though. So shadowing, volunteering, networking, traveling, working, asking questions, and question every time you feel icky. So when that ick comes, that's when you know. We see ick in other people. I know if anyone's dating right now and you get that red flag or that ick, you're automatically like, okay, other direction. But when an ick happens in your life and you're like, ooh, oof, let's chat about that. Prime example, I got an Instagram ad recently asking about egg donation, but specifically targeting Harvard students. And to me, that seemed icky. Like, do you really think that an egg donation from me is going to be better than from anyone else? You don't even know my IQ. But then it got me down a rabbit hole. Is it ethically permissible to target someone on their personal Instagram like they do for a J. Crew sweater for their eggs, like within your body to make a baby? Like, that to me was just, it felt very icky. So I had to question it. And now there's a research project on it. And then last but not least, and I'm going to end with this, strive for virtue, to be a better student, to be a better listener, a better communicator, a better question asker, but most importantly, a better human. So that is my goal for each and every one of you, as you move forward in this journey and hopefully towards becoming the most virtuous physicians the world has ever seen. So thank you guys so much. I'm sorry I kind of took up all of the time, but please feel free to connect with me on social media. TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the good stuff. I also have a website with free resources. So highly recommend just utilizing that. I want to thank you all again so much. And I hope everyone has, wherever in the world that you are, a good afternoon, morning, evening, night.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Do you have time for one question, two questions, or do you want to redirect questions to your Instagram or email?
Yeah, we can actually do a question or two if that works.
Oh, yeah, we can do one question. I'll take a question from the first person I see on my screen, Maisha.
Okay. Hi. First of all, great session. I think you spoke so well, and I could see everyone in the chat saying that it's the best session of that they have seen. I think it's really, really incredible that you have such great energy about ethics. So I wanted to ask you, you said that we should be the person that the world needs, especially right now. So what are some ethical issues that you think upcoming doctors or those who are currently in this line should pay attention to?
Yeah. One that I am particularly interested in is the use of medfluencers online. Me being heavily involved in social media, I see it a lot where there have been a couple of instances where I've seen these wellness influencers and medfluencers kind of sharing misinformation that isn't, and maybe using misinformation is incorrect, but they're sharing information that is contradictory, specifically when it comes to vaccines or when it comes to supplements that you should take and things like that. I think that is a major issue. And because they do have credibility within the medical field, or they do have a really strong following, they're able to influence the decisions of a lot of people. And it's really scary, especially right now in the United States with everything, honestly, everything that's happening in the world. It is something that I want us to dive deeper into. Another really interesting ethical case is the use of CRISPR-Cas9 systems. I don't know if anyone has seen those yet or is familiar with them. But recently at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, they just gene edited the first baby, which a lot of times I think there's a negative connotation that has been put forth in this field. But they used the CRISPR-Cas9 system to essentially remove a part of this child's DNA. And then they were able to use these therapies over at the beginning of life so that this child could have a working liver, because previously the child was producing, I want to say, too much PKU. I could be wrong on, I'm not as familiar. I just went to a lecture on it the other day and I haven't done a follow-up on this case. But it's really cool to see that this is new technology. It's the first time we've done it in the US. The child was about, I want to say 6 or 9 months old when we started, and then now he's completely cured. So he previously was not able to use the urea cycle correctly, creating a toxic buildup. And so he was initially going to have a liver transplant in hopes that they'd be able to mitigate some of the toxic buildup. But now he's doing really well. And it was all because the university decided to work on this, take this case on, and then they were able to get a lot of different teams involved. So they had ethicists on staff, they had clinicians that were working on the child, planning for his transplant in case this method didn't work. They had institutions from all across the US come together and say, like, we want to work on this. Because at one point they knew that they could use this technology, but they didn't know how to actually put it into the child because it hadn't quite been done in that form yet and at that young of an age. So it was really cool. But there's some of those like the gene editing and gene therapies that we're talking about. I think those are really up and coming, but they are also something that we have to be mindful of, right? Sorry, I could talk for hours on that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so
That was a
much.
great response. Yeah, we want to be respectful of your time, so we will end here and we'll redirect any questions to people can reach out to via your social media. We do ask everyone be patient. I bet Zoe has a lot of questions coming through her DM, so give her some time before you reach out again after you reached out initially. And before you go, we always want to give our amazing guest speakers a Zoom round of applause. So if everyone can navigate there and click the round of applause button.
Awesome.
Your last discussion point was actually a great segue. We're actually going to our medical debate now. We're gonna have a debate, and one of our topics is gene editing. So it's gonna be great that people can use some of the tips that they learned today from your presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And I hope we can all stay in touch and good luck. Bye.
All right, I will hand the mic to Davina to discuss our medical debate.
Okay, awesome. So I released the one attendance poll that we're doing for today. So make sure that you have that filled out. As a reminder, today's workshop portion of our session, so this debate that we're about to do, is not mandatory. So if you don't want to participate in the debate, we actually ask that you leave now and you'll be all good. Your attendance for the day will be marked down. You'll get credit for today. We just ask that if you're not participating, just to leave now so we don't add you to a breakout room with other students that actually are going to participate. So no worries if you're heading out now. We'll see you on Friday for our last session. I'll give everyone a second to leave the meeting, and then what we're going to do is create some breakout rooms for all of you. We, as medicine powered team leaders here, are just going to be flies on the wall as you're discussing the topics. The way that it will work is hopefully everyone will have all of these, have the debate document that we sent out open. Hopefully you've done some research into all of the topics before the session today. And what will happen is as soon as you've been added to a breakout room and you see one of us there, we're just going to be there to help the discussion flow if we notice that it's kind of stopped, and then we'll be making notes and assessing you on your performance. So once you see us in the room and everything, you can just get started. We'll be starting with topic number 1 today and moving down the list. You'll have about 10 or 15 minutes for each topic, and then we'll be giving you kind of a 3 or 4 minute warning, and then we'll be asking you to move on to the next topic. You don't have to pick a specific stance or anything. It's an unmoderated debate, so you can pick whatever stance you'd like, and it can even be more of a discussion with your fellow peers. But just remember to keep everything respectful and make sure that you're not speaking over any other people or interrupting other people. Okay, so I still see that people are leaving, so I'm gonna give it another minute or two, and then I'll go ahead and I'll create breakout rooms. If you have questions, just feel free to unmute and ask right now.
You can send the poll again.
I don't know if I'm able to send the poll again, but just message Rourke on Slack right now if you can't see it.
It's okay that someone doesn't have the enough for information to be in the debate.
Yeah, if you feel like you don't have enough information or preparation, then I would say probably just head out for the day.
Just to confirm, we'll be doing all 5 topics in 1 hour.
Yes, if we have time for all of them, we may not be able to get to topic 5 depending on how the discussion is. Like, let's say you're in a breakout room and you guys are really popping off about question 1. We won't stop that just because we want to be respectful of making sure people, talk about what they're actually interested in. But we'll at least get to at least 3 or 4 of the total topics.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you make it clearer? Like, say it again, how the debates are gonna work? Like, is it going to be breakout rooms for each debate, or are we going to debate on all of them? Like,
So
one topic
that's a
and
good
then the
question.
other?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is all of you are going to be split up into different breakout rooms. The purpose of the different breakout rooms is just to make the group smaller, so you're not trying to debate against 140 other people. You're just going to be talking with maybe 30 or 40 people instead. And you guys in that breakout room will be talking about all of the different topics. So the only purpose of the breakout room is just so that the groups are smaller and it's not as, everyone's trying to talk all at once.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask a question.
Mhm.
Should I fill any form to attend this debate session?
Nope, you don't have to fill out any forms for this.
Okay. Okay, when will we start the debate session?
We're going to start in just a minute or two. I still see some people leaving the Zoom session, so I want to make sure they have enough time to get out of here.
Okay.
And then Ahmad, we can stop the recording for today as